Good evening and thank you for joining us. Today marked the first major snowfall of the season for the Thunder Bay area.
All school buses were canceled this morning and rural schools with the Lakehead Board were closed for the day. But it was a tale of two cities when it came to how much of the white stuff people actually received. The snow wasn't so bad on the Port Arthur side of town, where main streets and residential roads only got a few centimeters. That was mostly cleared by noon. But the south side of the city got the worst of the snow squalls, with streets covered in slush and up to 15 centimeters of snow by this afternoon. That meant city plows had to make several passes on those streets and sidewalks throughout the day. Here's Roads Division Manager Ian Spraljerich on the challenges of dealing with the city's first major snowfall.
The first one's always a little tough, but operations have been going well. We started late last night, early this morning, and continuing throughout the day. There's a pretty significant difference in the amount of snow we got in the south compared to the north, and the first snowfall is a little difficult trying to find the curbs with the plows and along with the sidewalks as well. We're going to continue on the main lines in the south and north as well, along with the sidewalks, and just make sure those are all buttoned up by the end of the day. Continue on tomorrow as well and kind of see what snow we get today and throughout the night.
And we'll have more on the snowfall coming up in weather.
It's the end of an era at City Hall for a number of longtime councillors. The City Council that's represented Thunder Bay for the last 4 years met for the final time last night. It was an emotional evening with a few other important items on the agenda as well. Basilios Bellows reports.
An emotional evening at City Hall, as it was the last meeting for this term of council. Outgoing councillors were presented with a parting gift to commemorate their time serving the city. 6 on the council that have served the past 4 years will not be part of the newly elected council, including, of course, Bill Morrow, who decided not to seek the mayor's chair again, Peng Yu, who came third in the race to fill that spot, and Cody Fraser, who also did not seek re-election. The other 3 of the 6 are council veterans that decided not to run again as well. That includes Brian McKinnon, Aldo Roberto, and Rebecca Johnson, all of which reflected on their time as city councilors.
To influence the fact that we have a age-friendly organization now. We have dog parks, we have drug strategy. Those are some of the things, but I think what's really important is the contribution I made to the community.
I've been blessed to be a councillor for 16 years. I love this city, and I'll continue to love it. I'll continue to support it. I'll continue to speak as proudly as I can about the city and its people.
You know what? We persevered, and we made some pretty good decisions all in all. And when I look back, I've been on 4 councils, and this was as good as any of them.
It wasn't all fun and games, though, as the James Whalen tug found itself back on the agenda. A city report mentions a significant breach in the tug's hull, about 100 millimeters by 300 millimeters, with a report about next steps not coming back to council until early 2024. It was also mentioned that the recovery costs of the Whalen would set back other projects, most notably the restoration of the fountain at Waverly Park. City officials stressed during the meeting that the work on the fountain was not ready to proceed in any case, and would be delayed until the reserve could be replenished. As City Manager Norm Gale explains, the report will go beyond just the historic vessel.
We have dozens, over 100 artifacts in the city. Now, it depends on what you count as an artifact, everything from small monuments to the water fountain at Waverly Park. So what we want to do is take a holistic approach and say, City Council, this is how we recommend you handle the existing artifacts and what to do when more artifacts come, which they inevitably will. Okay? And it's about finance, it's about risk, it's about which ones we want, it's about what to do with the tug and others.
Basilios Bellows, TBT News.
The 2023 City Police budget topped the agenda at today's Thunder Bay Police Services Board meeting. A high number of homicides and violent crimes have prompted the approval of a proposed 7.2% increase for 2023. Mitchell Ringos has the details.
Homicides related to drug trade continue to give Thunder Bay a national reputation that no community would want. So far this year, there have been 13 homicides in the city, which is an all-time record. Acting Police Chief Dan Taddeo says it's a disturbing statistic in Thunder Bay and that clearly this year the city will be national news again. He made the prediction while asking for approval of a budget increase of 7.2% to just over $52 million, which includes more officers for the force next year.
We have to make sure that we have the resources in place to be able to respond in a timely manner. As I stated, the bigger issues that we hear quite frequently about to deal with things like addiction issues and the opioid crisis, which are front and center in Thunder Bay, those all require upstream solutions. Until that time comes, we still are the ones who have to respond.
Taddeo also highlighted the rise in domestic violence, saying the rate basically equates to 10 incidents every day. He claimed the lack of police officers is causing a domino effect that results in scheduling overtime, which Ontario-appointed Administrator Malcolm Mercer says was a big component of why he supported the request.
Members of the service are working harder, longer hours, and don't have the capacity to do needed work. That means things are not done as well as they should be. It means there's a human cost to being overstressed. And ironically, it means that it costs more because there's more overtime, which is an inefficient way of doing that work.
And during the police board meeting, Ken Boschkoff was sworn in, both as city mayor and as a police board member. We spoke to Boschkoff afterwards about what he wants to see from the police board now that he's a member.
Well, there's no doubt that we have to reorganize and refocus, and I do believe that everybody on the Police Services Board is willing to do that. So I'm expecting a pretty directed, planful approach to addressing the whole range of issues.
Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
Amidst a triple threat of respiratory viruses, the flu, RSV, and COVID-19, Thunder Bay's medical officer of health says COVID is the one she's least worried about. But Dr. Janet DeMille notes she's just as concerned about the overall state of the healthcare system now as she was during the height of the pandemic. On the same day that Health Canada officially declared an influenza epidemic, Thunder Bay's medical officer of health says that virus and RSV now concern her more than COVID-19 does.
There are children who are getting both infections.
And it's those youngest members of the population that Dr. Janet DeMille is most worried about as hospitals battle this triple threat of respiratory viruses.
Children under the age of 5 are at the highest risk right now, and that's what the health system is dealing with. It is babies, newborns, babies under 6 months who really can't even get the vaccines, right? The flu vaccine or the COVID vaccine.
On Monday, Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health said this.
I'm strongly recommending that all Ontarians, not just those at high risk, wear a mask in indoor public settings.
But Dr. Kieran Moore stopped short of reinstituting a mask mandate. And while Dr. DeMille says in a perfect world a mandate, particularly in schools, may help, she appreciates the political challenges that would have presented.
It has become a very polarized issue, the whole concept of mandates. Unfortunately, even masking, which is a very small thing overall, has been quite polarized.
But she hopes people will heed Dr. Moore's strong recommendation and mask up. And she's urging anyone who's sick, even parents, to minimize contact with children if at all possible.
Don't hang out with young children if you're sick or if you have any symptoms or if you're recovering from something. And certainly wearing a mask if you're around those kids. And that includes, anybody in the household, because it can happen that a parent will give it to their child, or it happens vice versa, or the sibling. So really protect those that are most vulnerable, which is that younger age group.
DeMille is also encouraging everyone who can to get the flu shot and the bivalent COVID vaccine.
To Queen's Park now, where the Premier is being questioned on why he isn't following Dr. Moore's advice. Siobhan Morris reports.
We should all be screening daily.
The prescription from Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health seemed clear.
I'm strongly recommending that all Ontarians, not just those at high risk, wear a mask in indoor public settings.
Today,
well, I think you have to take into consideration the size of the building, the size of the room.
A distinction not made by the province's top doctor. The Minister of Health, one of very few MPPs on the government benches, masked up during question period. The Premier's face remained uncovered, something that didn't go unnoticed.
The Premier said he will take the advice of the Medical Officer of Health. Why is the Premier not taking leadership and wearing a mask to protect our children?
The interim NDP leader explains he removed his mask only to speak, to be understood.
But the rest of the time I'm wearing my mask. To not wear your mask at all in the legislature when you're not speaking is not responsible.
That work is ongoing.
Opposition parties accuse Progressive Conservatives of showing indifference to the state of children's hospitals and a lack of leadership.
What we are seeing is people who are making determinations based on their personal circumstances. Personal choice is important here, and we should not be passing judgment on people who wear a mask or not wear a mask.
The feeling is Doug Ford should be setting an example for all Ontarians in the effort to protect kids and pediatric care.
He's telling people to wear a mask whenever you can. And there he is, sitting there for 45 minutes, right next to a bunch of people, and he hasn't got a mask on. So what do you think? What do you think people are going to say? Oh, look, he's telling me to do something he can't even do himself.
The opposition says the government should also be doing more to encourage Ontarians to get vaccinated as COVID-19, the flu, and RSV circulate. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
It's an exciting day for Wake the Giant as organizers were presented $50,000 from the Canada Post Community Foundation. It's the first year the Postal Service has awarded a Truth and Reconciliation signature grant, and Wake the Giant was recognized for its impact on Indigenous youth. A check presentation was held this afternoon with representatives from Wake the Giant and Canada Post. Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School students were in attendance as well. Canada Post raises money through the release of special stamps every year, with $1 from each pack of stamps going to the foundation. Canada Post's Rob Lackey says Wake the Giant is a deserving cause.
To me, it's all about gathering, as well as the musicians that come together for Wake the Giant festival. It's so big, and again, a lot of impact for sure, and that's why we want to make sure that the money goes to a great organization such as them.
I think a lot of it will go towards the workshops and some of the training behind there, getting that designed, but all of it helps a great cause and ultimately helps the youth get accustomed to the city.
Wake the Giant is a year-round initiative that culminates in a two-day celebration each September for Indigenous youth from 24 remote communities.
5 longtime friends from Thunder Bay are OLG's latest winners for the Encore Prize of $100,000. Jonathan Poliak, Mark Shinkarel, Ryan Statshow, Ryan Shaley, and Manish Argwal matched the last 6 Encore numbers in the Lotto Max draw held back in April. Each of them walked away with $20,000. The 5 friends have been close for decades and started playing Lotto Max as a group 10 years ago. It was Poliak who checked the winning ticket and immediately texted the group chat once he found out. They'll each use their share for things like renovations or kids' education and plan to keep playing the lottery together.
That's a pretty nice phone call to get.
That is.
Well, Mitch, I was one of those unfortunate people on the south side of the city today who couldn't get out of my driveway. Different story here, though, on the north side.
Yeah, plenty of snow like we saw in the first story. I was luckily on the north side of the city. I don't have my winter tires on, so I did make it to work while Ryan all the snow on the south side. That due in part to the wind from the northeast, up to 31 kilometers today. Snow squalls definitely on the south side, up to 15 centimeters. Temperature dropping from -1, sitting around there throughout the day. The low hitting -3 for that wind chill. Feeling like -10, so definitely a lot colder than it actually is outside. As we head to the region, plenty of snow throughout. It's going to be a common theme as we go through here in Dryden and Fort Frances. Similar temperatures down to -3. They saw snow throughout the day along with some heavy winds. Fort Frances currently at -1. A little colder in Atikokan and Upsala, but they also saw the snow making its way through the region, and that would continue farther northwest. Right now, they are getting a break, but that snow expected to return. Also some cold temperatures in Red Lake and Sioux Lookout. Their wind chill was up to 12 today, while continuing to the northeast. Also getting a break in Greenstone down to -6. The temperatures quite a bit colder down to -7 in Greenstone. They're also expecting more snow to make a return to the region. While out east, they didn't see snow throughout the day at all, but it has made its way to Sault Ste. Marie at the moment. Their temperature a little warmer, sitting at -2. Now, talking about temperatures, tonight it's going to get cold down to -8. The wind chill, like we felt today, feeling like -10. And as for that wind, it's going to jump up even more to around 37 kilometers. As for snow, we could see a little bit heading into tonight and tomorrow, but for the rest of the week, we could see even more snow. Maybe not as much as we saw today, but I'll have all the details in just a little bit.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mitch. Well, major news breaking this afternoon. There are reports, still unconfirmed, that Russian missiles have crossed over into Poland. Poland, of course, a NATO member. So if true, that could lead to a major escalation of the war. We'll have all the details as your Tuesday News Hour continues.
Fortunately, we're seeing a lot of illness amongst young people, and nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to see children in hospitals struggling to breathe.